A new Microsoft patent that was done at the end of December has the internet buzzing about the potential for yet another Xbox console to be coming to the marketplace. And Nintendo of Japan has another weird listing for an unannounced game as coming to the Nintendo Switch very soon. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome! Be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to like the video. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So Microsoft had a very successful launch for the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S in the month of November of 2020. I, of course, ended up picking up the Xbox Series X. It's the most powerful console on the marketplace. It plays discs, so as a physical collector, that definitely appeals to me. And overall, I've been pretty satisfied with the console. I've been playing most of my third-party games on this console instead of the PlayStation 5 because, well, the PlayStation 5 has a couple exclusive games such as Spider-Man Miles Morales and Demon's Souls to check out, whereas the Xbox Series X doesn't really have those games. Of course, they are coming. Microsoft has been purchasing studios left and right, and I think the future is very exciting for Microsoft and potentially the Xbox brand. Now, on the other side of the coin, Microsoft also released the Xbox Series S, which is a cheaper alternative to the Xbox Series X. Still plays all of the games, just not at the same visual fidelity as some of those other games run on the Xbox Series X, and they've sort of created an interesting ecosystem. Of course, there is no disc drive on the Xbox Series S, but people who picked up an Xbox Series S really seem to enjoy this system. It's an entry-level point into the next generation of gaming, which is going to be the main thing for the next, 4 or 5 years at least when it comes to next generation consoles and of course games. But is Microsoft actually working on yet another console, a sort of stopgap between the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S? Some people feel that that is indeed the case, and that is due to a brand new trademark listing that was just done on December 29th. Now, this listing is for something called the Xbox Series XS. Yes, folks, combining the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S into one console. Now, some people think that this could be an all-digital version of the Xbox Series X, much like the PlayStation 5 has. The PlayStation 5 has an all-digital version of the PlayStation 5 and then the disc-based version of the PlayStation 5, but both of them have the same sort of specifications. They play the games exactly the same. Whereas with the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, there is a difference in terms of things like frame rate and resolution when it comes to the game. So is Microsoft potentially working on a stopgap between the two consoles that is basically an Xbox Series X that does not feature a disc drive? I think this would be pretty silly, to be honest with you guys, because I don't really see the need for it. The Xbox Series X seems to be selling pretty well. The Xbox Series S seems to be selling pretty well. It's already confusing enough to have the Series X and the Series S on the marketplace. I could barely say it without getting tongue-tied, but putting in the Xbox Series XS would just throw sort of a monkey wrench into things. Now, do I think the Xbox Series XS does mean something? Of course it does. They wouldn't do a patent unless they wanted to do something with this patent at least further down the road. So could this be a revision of the Xbox Series X or a revision of the Xbox Series S? I don't think anyone really knows what this means. It could be something as simple as branding, because a lot of the games that you get, of course, have that the game runs on the Xbox Series X/Xbox Series S. So could this be somewhat of a combined branding for things like that? It could be something as simple as that, or it could be something more intricate. It could be something more detailed, such as new hardware. Do I think Xbox really needs to be looking at new hardware right now, 2 months after releasing the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S? Not necessarily, but you do want to future-proof your console. So a lot of people seem to think that this is going to be a new console from Microsoft. I'm not quite sure what I think about it. Obviously, it is something because a patent was done for this on December 29th, but as far as what this ends up being, I think really will remain to be seen. Could it even be like a slim version of an Xbox Series X? Like, who the hell really knows? But the Xbox Series XS is something. Now, whether that something ends up being a new console or it's just something simply as branding for Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S games really remains to be seen. But I want to know what you guys think of this. What do you think this is pertaining to? Do you think it's going to be a new console from Microsoft, sort of a stopgap in between the S and the X, or is it just a simple branding thing? Let me know in the comments section down below. And finally, Nintendo has been experiencing a bunch of leaks lately. We of course have talked about these things such as Luigi in Super Mario 64, the original design of the Nintendo Switch, but some of these leaks are not coming from outside sources. They're actually coming from Nintendo themselves, and it's making for a very interesting situation. Of course, most of this pertains to Nintendo of Japan. Things like Kirby Fighters 2 was of course leaked onto Nintendo's official website before the game was even announced, and then the game was announced, and then the game was released pretty much the next day after this was discovered on their website. We recently talked about the potential for Rare Replay to be coming to the Nintendo Switch due to the fact that Nintendo of Japan's website had 2 game listings that were for the Wii U, and they were both N64 games, and they both happened to be Rare games, Banjo-Kazooie and of course Blast Corps. Now what's going to come out from that situation really remains to be seen, but many people do feel that something is happening with those 2 games, and I do think that that is a smart thing to think about because of the fact that this is Nintendo of Japan's website. It's not like some random person is getting access to this and just randomly putting up listings for games. You actually have to have some credentials in order to get into this website. Make sure you guys check out my video talking about the potential for Rare Replay coming to the Nintendo Switch, because we really sort of go down a rabbit hole of possibilities with this. But this new discovery was once again made on Nintendo of Japan's website. This is talking about a new game coming to the Nintendo Switch, an unannounced game coming to the Nintendo Switch, and it's actually a pretty large AAA third-party title. Now the game in question is Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition for the Nintendo Switch. Now personally, I was a bit unfamiliar with the Kingdom Come Deliverance game. It came out on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and Steam, and it seemed like it was a pretty well-received game. It's sort of a first-person medieval action RPG game, sort of like Skyrim and stuff like that, but without, you know, dragons and stuff. It's more rooted in reality. But this game hasn't been announced for the Nintendo Switch in any way, shape, or form, unless you go to Nintendo of Japan's website and look up the game, because it's actually listed as Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition as releasing on February 18th. Now what's interesting about this game is this game was published by Deep Silver, and of course Deep Silver has done other games on the Nintendo Switch with games like Saints Row 3 and Saints Row 4. Deep Silver is a well-known publisher on the Nintendo Switch, so for a Deep Silver game to come over to the Nintendo Switch isn't really outside the realm of possibility. But this is pretty much a big game. This is a big AAA action RPG game, so many people are wondering how this game will even perform on the Nintendo Switch. It seems like it is getting a physical release according to the website on Nintendo of Japan's website. I'll have a link to it in the description box down below, just in case you guys want to see that. So that sort of gets rid of the mantra that it would be a cloud-based game. I thought originally it had the potential to be a cloud-based game. Obviously, games like Control and Hitman 3 are now coming out stateside with the cloud service. In Japan, you've had games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Resident Evil 7, but no, this is getting a physical version of a game, so that sort of gets rid of that point. To me, this seems like a game that you wouldn't just sort of stealth drop. You would actually hype it up somewhat and announce this game. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with this. Obviously, February 18th is very close. I don't think this will be just a Nintendo of Japan release. I could see this game releasing worldwide because I do feel like it'll appeal to more Western audiences more so than a Japanese audience. So could this mean that there's some sort of Nintendo related event coming in the month of January or potentially in the month of February that will talk about upcoming games for the Nintendo Switch? I mean, a lot of people seem to think that you will get a Nintendo Direct of some sort in the month of January, or at least some game announcements, and I think this game would be a perfect fit for that. I think a lot of people will enjoy this game. I'm actually interested in this game now. You know, I could pick it up on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One, as it has released on those systems, but I want to see what the Nintendo Switch does with this game, because I find it fascinating when big third-party games such as like Doom Eternal, you know, come to the Nintendo Switch, games that really shouldn't be running on the system, and I always find it interesting to see how the ports of these games run. So it does look like Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition, which probably includes all of the previous DLC from the game, will be coming out on the Nintendo Switch on February 18th, at least in Japan, but I definitely think this will be a worldwide release, and it's interesting that Nintendo of Japan just, well, keeps leaking new Nintendo Switch games without telling anyone about it. Alrighty, so that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. The Xbox Series XS, like, why don't you just call the Xbox Series Sex at this point? Like, that's sort of what you're looking at. That's what you want to get to. You want people to say sex when they say XS, so just go ahead and do it. Is it in excess? I need you tonight. 'cause I'm not sleeping. That song's kind of a banger. And Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition. Will you be checking this out on your Nintendo Switch? I guess next month, because according to Nintendo of Japan, that's when this game is coming out. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Like I said at the start, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe, turn on notifications, check out other videos on the channel, slap a like on this video as well. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next video. Also, the Eagles suck. I hate you, Doug Peterson. You ruined the Giants' playoff chances. You didn't even play the game. You just sat there and you rested your best players that you had available to you because you wanted a better draft pick, and it's ridiculous. And I hope you rot, and I hope the NFL investigates you because you ruined everything. You ruined everything. Later.